do see it comes 8. Ooh. Are we counting the Power Glove as motion controls?
Darn straight we are. It had motion controls.
Absolutely.
I suppose. I actually had one, so I may have more to contribute than I thought.
Oh, we have all sorts of stuff to contribute. No, this is a broader topic than I think upon first glance.
I mean, I'm gonna be quite honest with you. While I did have a Wii, I had like 6 games for that Wii.
It's fine.
And almost all of them were had nothing to do with the controllers. Almost all of them were exercise games.
It'll be perfectly fine.
Okay.
I feel like the stream's sounding quiet, but we're all about the same, so that's okay.
I'm pulling it up here.
As long as we're all the same, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine though.
Anyway. All right.
Ooh, so, I'm way muffled compared to you, Splice.
Are you sure?
I'm listening. Yeah.
I can't turn that up any further.
Yeah, we'll roll with it.
I'm unsure why it would be muffled.
Might have just been the way I was talking into the mic there.
No, but if it's muffled, like if the overall volume's lower, I don't know. Now. It's just weird. Anyway, but yeah, let us get started. Start the recording. When I was but a lad, at the tender age of 4 or 5, I can't remember, but I'm fairly certain 4, my parents came in and they had bought the NES 3-pack that had Mario, Duck Hunt, and a game called World Class Track Meet, which had the Nintendo Power Pad. Now you're playing with power, body power. And the first time I played it, I didn't get it. I guess like the numbers mattered for something. They didn't. And then I just started playing it. And I was quite shocked as a little kid how I actually got worn out playing this dumb game where all you're doing is moving your legs up and down. And this was my first little foray into motion controls gaming. This is episode 48 of I Think We Overleveled, where we're talking about motion controls. What was the first motion control game you guys played?
I mean, if we're now including the power pad, which I don't feel is a motion control thing. I feel like that is an actual like switch in which you hit with your foot.
I mean, everything's a switch at some level.
Then that's going to be not exactly, no. Like something, like I'm with you with like the Wii and like the PlayStation 1s, because those have like motion accelerators to track your movement and stuff like that. I can get behind the Power Glove to a certain extent. The Power Pad, however, no, because then it's like you have to count absolutely every DDR pad out there.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a control. Yes, it is.
That's just a large control pad that you're using with your feet. Motion control means that you are using motion as the control, not it's a control that you are using motion on.
No, you're
by that logic. Just regular NES controller is a motion controller because you're using motion to go.
No.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is.
That is crazy.
You're pressing a button. You're just doing it with your feet instead of your fingers.
You have to move your whole body to realistically do anything.
Baggins is with me.
Baggins ain't on here, so his opinion doesn't count as much. Am I trying to bait him into coming on?
No, I'm not trying to bait him to do anything.
No, I am. I'm trying to bait him into coming on.
there's certainly like something to be said. Like when I saw the power glove, I was like, okay, because you set up like a little thing around it, and we can talk about that in a bit. But no, absolutely not. Denied. You're getting the X. We're calling the match off on that one. That a power pad is a controller that you use with your feet. It doesn't detect your motion. It's just like pressing a button with your finger, except you're pressing it with your foot. I call absolute shenanigans on this.
That is
And
insane.
I will have your geek card for that one.
No, this is definitely a motion control game. You gotta move your whole body.
The DDR is a motion control
Yes, it
game,
is 100%.
but it's not. And anything you use a controller for is, because once again,
You're not. You got to move your whole body. Like just moving your fingers don't
camera
count.
that we're tracking your movement, like those dance games with the Kinects, then you've got an argument there. But the power pad, no, I'm sorry. Again, it's just a large controller on the ground that you're pressing the buttons with your feet rather than your fingers. And that's all the difference is.
I don't. I literally don't
if you're gonna call
understand
that
your
motion-
argument. I literally don't get it. Because if it's just a button like that, the Kinect is you're just moving your hands. Like I don't get why
But
it
you're moving your
matters.
hands, but there's no like switch there to do it. Like the camera is the thing that is detecting your motion. There's no detecting motion. It's if you can press a button and to kind of furtherize this, we used to play who could hit the pads with your hands fast enough, just because we wanted to see how fast we could get down the field.
Okay, now
That's not
this is
motion
actually
control.
no. I actually have a question.
We're punching a button.
This is
with your
actually
fists.
so one. I would totally play a game where you have to motion control with your fists like that. But did you find you actually went faster with that?
Yes.
Okay, everyone says I couldn't go faster with the hands.
Not at first, but you had to get had to get a certain cadence behind it, because you couldn't just like boom, 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 there had to be a rhythm to it. So in if you've ever played Donkey Kong Conga or whatever it is,
Oh my
the
freaking
beating drum,
goodness!
it was more akin to that. And once again, that's not a motion control. That is a different controller, and there's no difference between the two of them.
You got to move your whole body. That's a motion control game.
That is not motion control. That is
Okay.
absolutely not motion control.
Okay, all I know is what Kamizite wants is a sound or light controlled device. That's what he's going with. Now the question is, Kamizite, would you be okay with the Wii balance board because it uses potentiometers and solenoids?
That's a gray area. I would let that go easier than I'd let the power pad go. Because there's actual things that like weigh and actually go with the motion. The only motion that matters on the power pad is depressing and repressing. I think we actually did we get Baggins in here?
Splice, you're just wrong.
Exactly.
You're just flat out wrong.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Man, you guys are light and sound purists. My goodness.
You are actively pushing a button. I'm sorry. It's just a big button. It's not motion control.
Like motion control is a very specific thing. Like motion control, you're talking about, like, again, the Kinects where the camera is tracking your body and your body is the thing doing it.
I'd
like,
say camera tracking or an accelerometer or something like that.
An accelerometer, light accelerometer, and sound is where you're drawing the line.
And perhaps a gyroscope.
Okay, you keep saying sound, Looney. Why are you saying sound?
Yeah.
I'm saying that because the Power Glove used sound instead of light.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was sound based?
Yes.
What do you think those things where you put
Yes, they used sound instead of light, which is why it was not nearly as good as the Wiimote was.
Well, no, that I thought the things that we were putting on the TV were like the Wii sensor bar back in the day.
But instead of giving off light, they're giving off ultrasonic
no,
sound.
that's
like,
that.
Have you ever seen the
I
front
had no idea
of the
this.
thing? Like if you look at the front of the Power Glove, the little thing at the top, there's two like little.
I never had
like
one.
Little grates. Those are speakers.
They're okay.
I
so
just learned something.
I'm so
trying to
glad.
think, was it ultrasonic? I don't know. I'd have to watch the.
it's
the gaming
it's-
historian. Yeah, this one. He's
it's
the
a
one who
freak-
described what it was. I was surprised to learn it was sound myself when I watched this
The
documentary.
thing is, I watched this documentary and I don't remember this at all. So
I
clearly,
can't remember
I
if
didn't.
it was ultrasonic or subsonic. I can't remember, one of the two, but yeah, it was sound based instead of light based.
No
All
wonder
I
this
know
thing
is-
sucked.
All I know is I love the Power Glove. It's so bad.
I was gonna ask you why. Dang it.
But yeah, look, instead of the flashlight like the Wii sensor bar is, yeah, those are speakers.
Man.
or like the gun, which uses light on the screen.
Like the Zapper light gun, I wouldn't necessarily consider motion controlled.
No, I wouldn't either.
Okay.
Didn't the
it's
zapper
flash-
have something? There's something weird. If you pointed it away, it would trigger it.
If you for some games, that's how you would reload, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's how you reload it in some
If you-
games.
I think if you pointed at a white wall,
right.
because
Something like that.
that's because what would happen is it'd like flash a white
it would reflect off.
square.
and-
and that's how it would read.
Now,
but
I mean, okay, just
Go
to
ahead.
give a little bit of a defense for Splice here.
I don't need defense. You disagree. You can disagree.
Yeah, he's indefensible.
I will admit, the pads, specifically the DDR pad, got me moving a whole lot more than any other motion control device.
Yes.
Period.
Now you are moving,
Period.
but it's not
I
motion
moved a
controlled.
whole lot more, but I also think the pad is far superior because it's so much more precise as well. So if you
'Cause
want
it's
to
a
be
button.
strong on the purist of how it's, whether it's using
see,
light,
'cause
light, then
this
the
is-
imprecision is part of the motion control in your definition.
Yeah, this is where, because like to me, motion control, it's more about what you're doing in the game than the controller specifically.
Well, if that's the case, then going back to World Class Track Meet, I was barely moving in that game, and I was creaming people.
Really?
All you had to do was vibrate your heels, and the guy would move like Barry Allen.
Really?
The Switch was that bad on it.
It was crazy.
Man.
Like that's
Yeah, when
how
I was
we
a
would
kid,
do it.
I had
We
a
would
hard
stand-
like it was my friend's power pad that I tried to play this, and like, man, it was a hard time to get that button to push. It was like a DDR
Oh, gosh.
pad that had like 3 years of use on it.
No, we would stand. Only our heels would be on the button, and our feet and the balls of our feet would be in the front, and we could just barely lift our feet up and down. And I'm telling you, we could get that guy cruising.
Okay.
Like,
See,
I
I guess.
finished a race in like 2 seconds.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you guys found the advanced version. Because I found I could do better if I didn't lift my foot up and I instead was lifting just the ball of my heel up. But I couldn't duplicate whatever you were doing.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, no, I had a few years on you.
That's true, and it wasn't
But-
like I wasn't crowdsourcing solutions either. And that was the thing. Like I found out like that was actually a better workout because just lifting, your heel up and down as fast as you can, like you're working out less of an area, but holy crap, was that area getting quite the workout.
Uh-huh.
But no,
Yeah,
man, you guys are.
I refuse to concede that the power pad is motion controlled. It is
Yeah.
not motion controlled. 100% no.
Well, then let me ask you this: would you consider World Class Track Meet a motion control game?
No.
Interesting.
Like don't get me wrong. It is a game that requires motion,
Yes.
but it's no different than getting like a life-sized controller pad and jumping on the buttons individually. Like if the A and the B button, there was a mod that you could do where you could plug it in and you could just use the A and the B button as the run for it, and you
Mhm.
just press them back and forth, and that's just it. And that's all you're
Yeah.
doing on the power pad.
All I know
Like I
is you
said,
gotta be. I feel like you gotta be careful because to me it sounds like it's digital, therefore it can't be motion control. But
no.
then someone
There-
could easily make a
it's-
joystick argument.
It's not just digital though. It's a
They're
binary switch.
physical switches.
That's
They're-
what do you think
they're
I meant
physical-
by digital, dude? Thank you for defining the word digital to the audience. God,
A single binary switch. I'm
that's
like
what.
a single.
Oh man, dude. Actually, come on. That's the definition of digital.
I did not expect World
I-
Class
I
Track
don't-
Meet to be this
I
controversial.
don't understand your argument then. What do you mean it's digital? So how
Digital is
how
the
does-
on-off binary as opposed
Fine.
to analog, dude.
okay, and I don't understand what your argument is though.
Okay, my
Therefore
argument
what?
is saying that you're making a big deal over the fact that the reason why you feel like a pad, that you use with your feet cannot be considered motion controls because it's a digital button. And the devices that you use, whether it be light or sound or something, it's more of an analog input. That's why I was curious on your. That's why I was.
The reason I was
thought
confused
of
is because
the-
all of this is digital, as far as I'm aware.
But
yes, there's
the
analog,
input
but
is analog. The input is analog versus the input being digital. That's the key I'm getting to here.
I wouldn't say that
Because
it's just because
there's
the
a reason
input
why
is
you
analog.
call it an analog stick.
Right, but and that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't say it's
And-
just because it's analog, because an analog stick is not motion control.
Because now that's why I asked earlier your thoughts on the Wii balance board. Because when you get down
I
to
wasn't
it,
on when you asked about that.
when you get down to it, the Wii balance board is just 4 solenoids that is basically acting like 4.
Could you explain
joysticks.
the solenoid part?
Yeah, I would actually say there's an argument against Wii Fit being motion control, although it's closer to it.
I like I said, I would accept that closer to the power pad, but there's also very specific connotations to motion control. Because
Exactly.
these weren't marketed as motion controlled, but the things that are marketed as motion control, the Kinects, the what do you call them, the little PlayStation ones or whatever.
I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
the
I view
move.
because the trackpad was
the
literally like
Wiimotes and
you're
stuff
playing
like
with
that.
body power. Like I'd argue it's very advertised as motion
Body
control.
power, not motion controls, though. Like,
Well, I mean that
it's-
word wasn't even invented
there is a
then.
difference,
Right. I agree with Kami on this. I think there is a distinct difference. Now, oddly, I would say be more likely to say motion control with something like the 6-axis PS3 or 4 controller.
Well, there weren't that many games that
was
actually used
that. Was that like the ball thing?
No,
No,
it's just
no.
it's
He's
just a
talking
regular-
about just the
it's just-
gyroscopes in like the PS3,
Yeah,
PS4,
I would be
PS5
more likely,
controller.
like I'm not necessarily saying yes, that is it, but I'd be more likely to say that is motion control than something like the power pad, because it depends on the actual motion rather than just what you're pushing the switch with.
Actually, I have kind of another way of putting
Okay.
this. I think it's along the same lines. So everyone here has played Breath of the Wild, yeah.
Sure.
yes.
So
temporarily.
you play Breath of the Wild with your controller, and that controller is just like the power pad. But there are certain puzzles where you have to turn it this way, that way, or the other way. That's motion control.
I would agree with you on that.
Well, that, and if you want to get that way, then you got to include like Splatoon and aiming with the bow because you can use the
Yes.
controller for aiming.
Yes.
Yes, I'm with you there.
This
That's
is
not-
this
that's
is where
absolutely
I have a
100%.
huge gap in my Splatoon knowledge. I did not realize this.
Yeah, because like you could use it uses both, not just the analog sticks, but it uses the fine tuning with the controller itself. I don't like it, honestly.
I was going to say, how does that work in the middle of a firefight?
But people really actually, I mean, a lot of people actually think it's a lot better because then, they're not just have the joystick, they can do the fine tuning with their hand, like with moving the controller around. Like a lot of people really like it actually.
Huh.
Because it's kind of like if you had one joystick that were able to spin you around quickly, and then another joystick that could do the fine-tuned aiming. So it's like you could snipe or 360 it really quickly, depending on which one you're using. And so they just set it up that the joystick's the faster motion and the controller has the slower motion. And people like that combination. I'm not one of them, but a lot of people like it.
Man, okay. Well, Kami, so you said you owned the Power Glove?
Yes, I did.
Did you
I had
have
gotten it for a Christmas?
what
either
game did you have that
before-
came with it?
I don't think I got a game with.
Oh,
it.
you
Like,
didn't-
I had like
You didn't
there
get
were
Glove
games I
Ball?
had. No, I didn't. I never had Glove Ball. I got the Power Glove itself, but with nothing with it. I didn't get the package. I guess they were sold out or whatever. It was a Santa gift, so
Yeah. Well,
you know,
then I gotta ask, like,
can't really complain. Santa,
did you
Santa
get
came
any
out.
of? Did you get one of the? I think it was what, 2 games that were designed for it.
Nope, nope. I had to make do with the games that I had, which was like Super Mario Brothers and Top Gun and Star Voyager and stuff like that. Which it made Top Gun a little easier. I can say that much.
Okay. See, that,
I could actually see that.
Oh, and I had Mike Tyson's Punch Out, which was like you actually did the punches.
but it was because don't you have to put your hand on the controller to choose like left or right, which matters in that game?
No, when you do the punches, and it's been like 30 plus years, so I may be getting this wrong, but basically, you do a punch forward, and that's like the punch. If you do a punch upwards, that's like the uppercut. If you turn your fist, flick it to the right, you dodge right. If you did it to the left, you dodge left. And that's basically how you moved around in the ring. And no, it was like punch forward was punch forward, punch up was punch up, and then you had like a Z motion that you did, and that was like the star uppercut. And if you got up, you like basically you just had to like just pump your hand up and back and forth to try and get yourself up.
Man, that sounds complicated.
Oh,
And like
yeah.
your right arm would be
it
absolutely
was not
worn
fun.
out. That sounds so tedious. That did not simulate what you thought it would be. That's for certain.
Oh, if you think that's bad, I tried playing Super Mario 3 with it, and let me tell you, I
Oh,
was
jeez.
confused.
So you're saying that wasn't an intuitive process?
Oh gosh, it was like to move. You literally moved the glove left or right.
Which
Think
I mean,
about that for a bit.
well, and how do you
There's
run?
only so far you can go.
Did it let you did it calibrate like a center position, or did you have to keep like
There was
scrolling
also,
and scrolling and scrolling and like returning, but he keeps turning around while you're trying to return?
well,
That's what
the
I
other
remember
part-
happening.
The other part of it was like if you look at the Power Glove, like there was like this big there's like all of these numbers on there. Like you had to type in like what number corresponded to what game, so that the Power Glove was calibrated to what you were playing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just like you were good to go and just like these things meant these things.
Because it's
Like, there
changing
were
what
certain
each
things you
button
had
does
to
what.
do.
That makes sense. Yeah. No, wow.
No,
Yeah, I
but,
mean, like the Power Glove, like they made it look good in the movie, but it was nowhere near as
Well,
easy
that's
as
just
that.
how good of a gamer Lucas is.
Dude, I think the technology of it is really cool. Like we're just seeing on the video where it's talking about how it's got the the cables and how they measure the voltage change as to detect the fingers closing. Like I think it's really cool.
I'm glad it existed. It was not ready for public release.
Especially not in the 8-bit era.
No.
Like like this was a bad idea for modern gaming in how it actually works, but back then it's just so anti-intuitive. But it looked cool.
But the thing that I like about it is that was back in the 80s or 80s or early 90s, I can't remember. But it was like no man's land in video game development, and so they were trying anything.
Yeah, well, because
I missed that.
This whole story of it's a really good. We're gonna have a few pieces of gaming historian documentary above us, but if you're ever interested, this is one of the it's interesting because a guy came up with it, and originally he made it as a tool for I believe like trying to make music on a computer, like sort of like a conductor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can't remember how, but somehow someone at Mattel found out about it. And so they partnered with him to make it and then try and sell it to Nintendo. And so, yeah, it was definitely the
Mattel
like
also
you
did the
s-
Game Genie, right?
no
That was Galoob.
Galoob, that's what it was.
Galoob.
It's like I try to remember what
Man,
it was. But
I
like
thought of
you said,
Galoob in a while.
it's the no man's land. So people are just trying to come up with all sorts of things, like LJN creating the rock and rollin' controller. Let me see if I can find the
Oh,
clip.
I think that's the one. But
Oh
but
goodness,
point,
anything by LJN is.
but back to point before you switch over real quick
Uh-huh.
is that again to further the point that very clearly there's a divide between me and Baggins' side of the room and you two is that everything that you did with the Power Glove had to do with motion. You had to motion, and it wasn't like I was hitting a button. It wasn't like
Now,
if there were
I-
switches in the glove itself.
I will say that's not entirely true because like I do remember to jump when we were trying to play Super Mario, you twitched your index finger, and that had to be hitting some sort of a switch.
I don't think it was.
I
I mean,
I'm fairly
and
that-
certain it was.
and I will be.
Well, no. If it's from the flexing of the glove, like I said, it's measuring the voltage across
Yeah.
wires going across. It's not. It's analog. It just has a
Okay.
threshold that it's passing over. I mean, technically, even digital transistors are analog that have a threshold, but
Right.
I'm saying the way that works is closer to the way any gyroscope works.
But
Yeah.
is that a physical button that you would hit, or is it just the wires, the way you move it?
I,
know,
I,
It
movement
affected
itself.
the resistance of the wire and it detected a change.
I think
it
the
wasn't a
comparison to
button.
digital and analog, it's like there is some truth to that. I don't know exactly where the line draw it is, but there is some truth to that because like I said, it felt like I was just hitting a switch.
Okay, but now I'm curious. What do you think of what's on the screen right now? This
Um,
roll and rocker, because it's a
this was
digital
the thing I
switch
was
that's
thinking
being
of.
hit, but you're rolling on a board to do it.
sorry,
This
I
is
have my
very
glasses on.
proto Wii pad.
Because it says depending on which way it's leaning, there's a literal metal ball that hits a button, hits a switch essentially.
I would probably say not quite motion controls. Closer, but not quite.
Because
there.
I mean, to me, this
I would
it's
put
similar
this
to the whole Wii balance board.
yeah, and the Wii balance board again, I think like there's an illusion of
which-
motion controls, but it's not quite motion control.
Which I still have a Wii balance board somewhere around here.
Oh, I do too. I think everybody
mean,
does.
But I mean, like this is
Go
this
to
is one
any
of those-
thrift
this is one of
store.
those
There's a
ones where
mountain of them.
I could see you argue either way
I
for
I,
it
I
because-
can't. This is the part where okay. I hear you guys' argument on the power pad. I don't see how you can say that the balance board isn't motion controls like that. That is one like it's all motion.
I think our definition of motion controls is just different here.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm being very, I'm looking more on the electronic side, how they're defining it, because there's plenty of things that break their rules, and that's why I'm being kind of a stickler. Well, maybe not a stickler, but I'm giving him guff about it.
Okay, this is
Because I'm not
th-
exactly
This is a
picking,
this is a safe
what-
this is a
wait,
safe
side.
space, right?
What have I said is motion controls that breaks the rules?
Well, that's why. Well, I mean, I guess with this one, that's why you're saying that you don't fully consider it, but
I'd say it's closer, but again, it's closer to like with the Wii balance pad, which gives the illusion of motion controls, but I wouldn't necessarily say it actually is.
At the very minimum, I think you'd have to say like the whole point is trying to get people moving for the
'Cause
illusion
sure,
of involvement.
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm just saying,
Which-
like on the electronic side, what you seem to more consider motion control technically applies to an analog stick.
Yes,
but
and
clearly you
and
don't
that's
want
what-
to count that.
No, and that's what I was saying is there is something to that, but it's not just that.
I'm just saying, I think your criterion's a bit ridiculous, but it's all kind of at this point. There's not a real clear cut definition, and it can be
I would
person to person.
I would probably put that closer to like the progenitor of what I would consider motion control, because you're not. The reason why I'm so vehement against the power pad is because you can feel the physical button under your foot. Like there's no question as to what's going on there. With this, you are using motion, and while yes, there's probably, like you said, I've never used one myself, and so by your definition, there's a metal ball that's going around and hitting the things in there. You are not the one who is hitting those buttons, though. Your motion is causing another object to do it. So I would probably go on the technical side of, yeah, this is motion controlled because you're using your motion to control the things rather than just input on a controller button. You know, I could see the argument either way with that one. I don't have a particularly strong opinion.
But
Which I'm like, so if I hold a pencil and push the button with the pencil instead of my finger.
Nope, because you're still pushing a button. You're still pushing the button itself, and you're holding the pencil to push the button. You're not.
So
you're
you're wanting some sort of translation device, essentially.
So
right. Like there has to be at the very least that for it to be in it. If it's just you are depressing a button and you are pushing it down, picking it up, that's a controller. It's a controller. It's not motion controlled. You're controlling it by pressing the button down with your finger in the most classic video game sense.
I forgot Gaming Historia did this.
I think I've kind of got in my head a little bit around what I was talking about. So Splice, you're talking about the definition of it necessarily needs to be just there's motion involved, right?
Not just the whole where the point is to get you moving.
Okay. And then Looney, you were talking about how I'm saying it's, more just an analog input. I think both are required.
Okay, so you want
if either
motion,
of those
you want an analog
and motion
and full body motion.
Not necessarily full body motion, but yes, motion. Yes.
Well, no, because you can't say full body motion for the definition, because
well,
then
true,
we would
because
be.
the thing is there's a point where you're like,
right.
oh well, I count motion control if it's you're tilting your controller because it's got a gyroscope in it. But I'm like, how is that really that much different than an analog stick?
That's why I'm saying not full body motion.
Yeah, but to me, I don't see how the gyroscope's that functionally different than an analog stick, other than you can be more precise with an analog stick.
Motion beyond just your fingers.
The gyroscope on the controller, to me, just because it uses a little bit more of your arms and your wrist?
The wrist and your arms, yes.
So movement beyond fingers to your wrist, that's the key for you.
Well, like I said, that's on the edge of it. I'm not saying it's fully there, but I would say it's an edge case.
Speaking of edge cases, this is stupid. There's really no transition here. This is the hot.
Well,
this is
transition then.
Yeah, the hot seat. Oh my gosh.
What in the world?
Oh, you haven't seen the hot seat?
Man,
remember this.
Gaming Historian's got such great stuff. Man.
Wait! I am having flashbacks.
It's basically the exact same thing as the rock and rollin' controller, except it's a seat.
Except you control it with your butt.
Yeah, and you have a joystick on top of it, which does allow for slightly different gameplay because, it has a joystick. But yeah, this is more going into the whole thing you were saying, how it was the 80s and everyone was just trying anything.
Oh yeah, they just want it in.
And well, because it was the new frontier, and it's like, okay, well, how do we change up how people play? And it's like, well, what if it was an entire chair? Now, the secret here is that the chair is actually not necessary at all, because all the controls are in the joystick, which is kind of hilarious. But yeah, I forgot who put this one out. I think it was some company that quickly went under. But yeah, it uses the exact same tilt switch thing that the rock and roller thing used. That's
the other thing, is that back in the day, and this would go more in a conversation about peripherals, but back in the day, gaming systems were so simple that you didn't have to have a full enterprise behind you to make something. You know, a lot of these companies that are trying to make peripherals, they have to have like a whole machine behind them now, because
It's
it's
complicated.
it's a much more complicated prospect.
Okay. So
Yeah.
going back to the point of what is a motion controller,
Here we go.
I actually looked up what the actual definition of this was. So
Where
in a computer,
no, let's first.
Wikipedia,
We'll see if I like it.
What's
just
the
definition
what's
alone.
what's their source that they're
Mostly
they're
the-
looking to?
A motion controller is a type of input device that uses accelerometers, gyroscopes, cameras, or other sensors to track motion.
Yeah,
Motion
I
controllers use as game controllers for virtual reality and other simulation purposes, and as pointing devices for smart TVs and personal computers.
wait. So they're including remote controls. Then is
Yeah, because you could do the same thing with the Wiimote, because
Yeah.
your motion is what controlled the thing that was on the screen. It wasn't a button. You didn't press something down. Like, you pressed something to interact with it, but you moved it around with just the motion of your wrist and your arms.
I
yeah.
agree with this definition.
I don't know if I do, but I have issues with Wikipedia just because of the number of times I've had to use their definitions in quiz games and being like, I don't like that definition. That makes no sense. Because,
What is Wikipedia's source?
well, it's not so much their source and how they decide to define things sometimes. Because,
I mean,
like,
this is just like the summary at the beginning of it, because
yeah. Well, no.
Clearly,
So, like, if you want, like, because
we're each on a spectrum as to what this is.
yeah.
And
Well,
so I decided
the
to
best thing,
find some kind of concrete something
No.
or other.
the issue I got into was like their definition of like RPG, and I'm just like, what isn't an RPG with your definition?
It's in the title. It's a rocket propelled grenade.
It's a fair point. Okay.
But of course, the thing that I find interesting is then how do you guys feel about Paradise?
What's that?
Not familiar with this.
So, you know, there's DDR machines, there was pump it up machines, and those of course were buttons, which you guys have already said you don't like buttons because it's a button. But Paradise, instead of buttons, it had lasers that you put your hand in to block it, just like the
You mean
lasers
like
of a
you mean like the
like
U
a garage
Force?
door, like the garage door sensor. If you try to, go under the garage door while it's
Oh,
closing.
I think I know what you're talking about now. And as you put it over, it does a thing.
Yeah, so you wave your hand over, like, that there's basically areas where you need to put, move your body to like block the beam to.
You mean
basically
like
push
the
button
U
and time
Force?
the music.
So like when you're like a paper towel dispenser.
Yeah, sure. I think garage door is more apt than paper towel dispenser, but sure, yeah.
I think I played a
I mean,
version
same
of
thing, you're
DDR that
basically
used
saying-
this.
So
I would.
so like it's basically a controller, but instead of pushing buttons, you block a light beam with your body.
Like this.
I'd count it.
Yeah, I probably would too.
Even though it's
I-
purely digital, it's on off, but
Yes.
because it's a light beam, you like it more.
It's not even a
For
purpose
s-
of light. Like it's again. Motion
And yeah,
control
like
is
this,
a very specific,
like this very thing that
specific
he's showing,
marketing
this
thing.
U-Force.
Were you not trying to
Like-
set me up for the U Force?
No, actually I wasn't. It just worked out that well.
That is fascinating to me.
I mean, you keep going back to the we don't like buttons. A button is a traditional controller, and a traditional controller is not motion controlled. It is a controller in and of itself. Motion controlled suggests that the motion itself is what is controlling it, which is why
Yes.
I went and I looked up the definition of it. And again, if you're going to count the power pad as a motion controller, then a regular controller counts as well, because it's the same motion.
Because
you're
you're
doing
physically depressing a button or a switch to
Exactly.
make
And you
now
see,
that
and for
this-
me that wouldn't count because the point again, for me the point has to be to get you moving.
But that's not
And-
the industry standard for that term.
So you
So,
guys
like,
would
you're-
consider now the question is Splice. I'm pretty sure I know their answer. How do you feel about a theremin being called a motion controller instrument?
I mean, aren't all instruments motion control instruments?
I mean, if that's the case, then
Theremin?
everything's motion controlled.
That's the thing, because to me, I find this whole analog stick button whatever somewhat arbitrary from you guys. That's why I'm probing so much.
Well, it's not it might be arbitrary, but it is in the sense of that again. Motion control is a very specific definition.
I gotta know, is there a theremin hero?
I will admit, when I think of motion controls, to me that means by definition it's imprecise and crappy. That's kind of how I do it.
I mean, you can, but like motion control, when like the PlayStation came out with its little Wiimote side thing, motion controlled was how it was marketed. Same thing with the Kinects, that you motion control for a better experience. I mean, it wasn't an experience, but that was the marketing behind it.
I haven't fully thought this through, but I'm thinking, okay, if maybe I can help define what I'm talking about by having a definition for what it isn't. So just basically to distinguish between motion controlled and contact controlled.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
So I'm sorry. I
think Kami and I are on the same page on this.
Yeah. I don't, you guys talking about this just made me realize, how is there not a theremin hero game? I could literally learn to play the thererin with a video game.
Like,
how do you know there's not one?
Because I'm looking it up
to learn how to play the theremin.
I've
too much going on, man. Don't throw learning an instrument on top of that pile.
I don't know. This sounds pretty cool.
I mean, the other instruments are definitely contact.
No, theremin hero. This is a good idea. Someone should make this.
There's a YouTube channel called Yell Theremin Hero.
Oh my good. Do they teach you how to play the theremin?
Theremin player, laser harp player, 8-bit musician, geek, gamer, 3D printing enthusiast.
I don't know. This seems iffy. Doesn't sound quite what I'm looking for. But this channel might be worth checking out.
He also has a 3D printed Game Boy keytar.
Can I just ask, since we're kind of at the halfway point here, or maybe towards the end, is this the most contentious episode of
Absolutely
Overleveled
Darn straight
we've ever had?
Oh, yeah.
And I love it. Anyway,
the ratings are going to be great for this one.
Viridian Frost, how's it going?
I put a poll up on my Facebook.
Well, one, it's like you just came out the gate swinging there, Kamizite.
I didn't come out the gate swinging.
Oh, yes, you did.
Very clearly wrong, and he needed to be corrected.
You see, that's what I think is what he means.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
I think you could have said, I don't know if that, and instead it was I
will admit, though, when Baggins came in, I swung back at one point because
I believe the phrase you're looking for is filled with righteous indignation.
Yes.
I believe the phrase was he chose violence.
I did, but when have you ever known me not to choose violence?
A lot. You hold back a lot.
Point.
You're a very sensitive soul.
I am a very sensitive
seems
soul.
Thick-skinned.
Although I do in the real world, portray you as a crazy CEO that makes Chinese investors yell "Splice is nice" in the lunchroom.
Yeah, I am way too poor for that. Anyway, well, we've already kind of gotten what I was going to bring up with the Wii Fit, so I won't bother with that. Instead, I want to discuss because we've been talking about the old school motion controls. What we haven't touched on is the hellscape this game created. Wii Sports destroyed gaming for half a generation.
Oh, yes.
And it's funny because
it destroyed Nintendo games.
No, it destroyed.
No, you're right. You're fair.
No, it bled into. I mean,
because
come on,
it bled into Xbox
and the Move. Yeah.
Oh,
Rare
gosh,
died.
Move.
Rare died because of Wii Sports.
Did it really?
Well, so well, not literally died. It still exists, but well, as you all know, Rare got bought by Microsoft. And then promptly kind of moved Rare from making 3D platformers, the thing they're good at. And because they lost a lot, people started leaving. And they then put them on the Kinect, and they had to make Kinect Adventures.
Oh, gosh. Why?
Because this is the thing. The Wii had a central gimmick, and I would argue, and this might be a topic for another day, that Wii Sports might be the best pack-in title ever. Because the point of a pack-in title is to show, what this
What the
thing
system
can do. And
Yeah.
I don't know if any game beats Wii Sports in that regard.
Well, to be fair, no other
be
system
fair.
needed a packing game as much as the Wii.
Well, but like other ones, like they're showcasing what this thing can do, and what this thing can do is something like, okay, look at what we can do with these shaders now. Look at what,
Right.
Whereas,
Ray tracing.
which this is, guys, we've come up with a completely unique way of playing a game. Now, the problem
Well-
for the Wii is Nintendo insisted, no, everything needs to be motion controlled.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, I know,
The,
Fame-
the other
Again,
problem
There's that term.
the other
motion
problem for the
control.
Wii is that they insisted that it be the size of 3 stacked DVD cases.
there's
Yeah,
that as well.
too. But I
Um,
mean,
Well, that
to
and
point, I
this-
think.
the Wiimote
this
is such a weird controller.
Yeah, I mean,
why do you
yeah,
say that?
Nobody. I don't think anyone's gonna throw bones at you over that.
And
But-
and even the classic controller was a garbage piece of hardware.
Well, it's because Nintendo didn't want people to use it.
Mhm.
Well, I did like the Pro version of the classic controller where they
The
put
Pro
the
version is different. The Pro controller is different, but the classic controller was
Well,
garbage.
Well, the only difference between the two is they actually put the wire on the correct side and gave you handles to grip it with, but functionally it was the same controller.
But they also because they also the joysticks were different as well. Like their placement wasn't right next to each other.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, the placement a little different. Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of difference in the.
It's a little closer to what with the modern Pro controller. Still not
I
quite.
mean,
there.
I had both of them.
I love the modern Pro controller.
I used the classic controller, and then when I got the Pro classic controller, I switched to using that one.
Mhm.
But I don't know.
It felt cheap.
But I think back to the point to both the points you were.
Well,
making.
actually, you know what the
I think
biggest
this is a-
problem was with the classic controller, and the even was true with the Pro controller, is the fact that you set down the Wiimote, and if you have a toddler, he'll come up and grab the Wiimote and start pushing the home button and other buttons.
True. With wireless controls, you can no longer give them a controller that isn't plugged in.
You don't know how many times I was playing Xenoblade Chronicles, and then suddenly the home button gets pushed because my little kid just came up and sneakily grabbed the Wiimote and started pushing buttons.
You're over here having to play Five Nights at Freddy's in the middle of playing Xenoblade.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, you were
Honestly,
saying, Kami?
You're both right in this respect. That yes, it is. Wii Sports it is without a shadow of a doubt with number one with the bullet when it comes to the best pack-in title. But to Baggins' point, it kind of had to be.
I mean,
Like,
it's
this
not my
wasn't like-
favorite pack-in title by a long
no.
shot.
No.
I'm
But
not gonna,
but for what it taught,
For what it
the
was supposed to be.
capabilities. Yeah.
because it wasn't like the demo tapes you got with your PlayStation where it's like, here's the graphical power that you have access to now. Woo! We
Mhm.
got polygons now on our Final Fantasies.
Well, I mean,
Um,
the
But like you were learning a completely new play style altogether.
That was incredibly intuitive.
Yes, but
For
yes,
a game
at the
like
same
Wii
time, also
Sports.
not intuitive to what you've been doing up until that point.
Oh no. Well, and
but the thing is, like the thing that just proves that case is how many Wii's were sold just for Wii Sports.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and
Oh,
that's one of the things. Why did Sony and Microsoft suddenly go, crap, we got to have our own motion controls? Because the Wii sold so many freaking units that they suddenly said, holy crap, there's a whole market we're not reaching. And so you
And
had
of
the
course, there was also the danger element to it all.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I may have brought a Wii Remote's breaking stuff.
Are we talking about ballistic
I-
controllers?
I love how it's got all the plastic things on it, you know. Of course, that's what flew off. But like all the little extra pieces of plastic to stick on it just so it looks more realistic, even though it does nothing.
Oh,
To be fair, to be 100% fair, in the original Wii, because again, I got one for my roommate in the first try. In the original Wii, they said, "Hey, put the little strap there. That's supposed
yep.
to go around your wrist. That's so
Yes.
that's so you don't do it. You're gonna break some stuff."
But
And
the thing
everyone's like,
is,
"I'm not gonna break some stuff."
well, the thing is, a lot of people did that, but the original wrist straps that they included snapped.
Mm.
I saw so many examples where people did it, let go. They were wearing the wrist strap, but the tiny little string connecting the strap and the
You can see it. It's
remote, there was
around
a
this
little
guy's
string,
here.
and it would snap. And so you would just see these things just like little torpedoes,
Which leads back to the whole cheapness.
to the point
And-
where I actually like they had like, if you bought one of the early Wii's, which I actually had it opening day, they did a recall, and they said write in or call us or email, I don't remember what it was, and we'll send you 2 new straps, and they were like a much more durable material.
Yeah. Well, I even remember even I caused a casualty, and I was wearing the wrist strap. It wasn't because it flew out of my hand, but just because you have to be careful of furniture nearby.
Mhm.
You know, on your Sandersonian podcast, when your co-host is Amy, right?
Right.
I was over at their house and we were playing on the Wii, and they had me play bowling, and I did a bowl, and I hit like some sort of, I can't remember, was it like a banana chair, but some sort of chair they had, and it put a crack in the
Ooh.
in their Wiimote, just a little piece of plastic on top, but it put a crack in their Wiimote, and they're like, it still works, you know. It was
But
still
yeah.
able to read white, but yeah, the
But you
little
st- you
black
still
part
feel
that the light
awful.
goes through, I put a crack in it. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. They're like, well, at least it works.
But the whole thing was like suddenly everyone's grandmas had a Wii, and they understood how to play it because the Wiimote worked like a remote control. They understood how that worked because a remote control mixed with a mouse, and they like bowling. It's like, okay, you hold down B, that's you holding the ball. You let go, that's you letting go of the ball. Tennis, you literally just swing it.
Well, I mean, for example, I remember the first time since Duck Hunt my dad ever asked to play a game, and that was when we were doing baseball. And like at one point, like, you know, we've been going for a while, and he's just like, "Let me take a swing at that," because my dad was like completely non-gamer, like as far from gamer as it comes. But he saw us doing this, and he's just like, "Okay, I understand how this works."
Like, and that's the thing that they were all trying to tap into. I get how this works, but one, the Kinect, not a reliable controller.
No.
And
But-
two, the thing is, it's the intuitiveness of it. And so many things in this motion control era were trying to do things with motion controls that just weren't intuitive. Like
Yep.
motion control
Well-
only works when it's in its specific setting for it to work.
Well, for example, in Wii Sports, boxing, it threw a lot of people off because it wasn't always clear if you were doing a punch or if you were moving. And so sometimes you'd be trying to move to block and it'd punch and vice versa. And like, let me tell you though, my nephew was 6 years old at the time that this came out. And I have a brother-in-law who was probably this was 20 years ago, probably in his 30s. And you have not seen absolute frustration when a middle-aged man is boxing against a 6-year-old, and the 6-year-old is just flailing his arms and absolutely dominating.
The motion control version of button mashing.
Well, I
Exactly.
mean, that's the only way to win that is honestly just flailing around.
Uh-huh.
Well, I also think now that we're at like, you know, kind of like the genesis of what modern motion control is, we should also point out that, you know, a part of the appeal to all of this was the promise that it bring. Because everyone in in this podcast right now, we're all nerds, and
What?
this is just like the first step to virtual reality, or at least that's how some people saw it as.
Yeah.
You know,
At
starting to
least
move
at the very minimum, augmented reality.
exactly.
Mhm.
You know, that's what that was a big appeal behind it to some of the older people, because we is for the family. They're like, oh man, you know, we're one step closer to Ghost in the Shell. Just put a
Well, yeah.
remote in my hand.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. They wanted to have that, extra realism of, oh, I'm actually doing the full motion myself. But the problem is, the Wii was, very simple. They wanted to just have one little remote and then plus a nunchuck maybe, but it's just got little accelerometers. They're not super precise, and so what's really interesting is to see what the competition did, because they wanted to beat the Wii at its game, right? And so Microsoft decided to go all in on the whole, okay, we want to make your whole body the controller to really give you that immersion of it's, translating not just what's in your hand, but your entire body, right? And so they made that camera to follow your whole body, though the problem with that was it was now the least precise of even less precise than the Wiimote was, because they're trying to do so much with just a camera.
Right.
It was a fancy camera, but it was still a camera. And then what was interesting is PlayStation went the entire other route to be on the other side. Is they say like, okay, the Kinect is the least precise. The Kinect, sure, it uses most of the body, but it's the least precise. The Wii Motion is more precise. It's still not very precise, and that's a big source of complaint. So we're going to try and beat Nintendo at its own game. We're going to put a light ball plus a camera so it's a much more precise version of the Wiimote. Instead of just, the little motion sensor bar that has two IR candles, we're going to have a bright light that can be tracked very, very precisely.
I just want to, just before you go on, this little disclaimer at the bottom left of the Xbox 360 Kinect demonstrator has never been more accurate.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Actual features and functionality may vary.
So it's like when you compare the Move versus the Kinect versus the Wiimote, I think by far the PlayStation's Move is the most precise, but it's also the most ridiculous looking, because it's a giant light ball.
Yeah,
and
an ice cream cone.
It's expensive. Yeah,
yeah. People made other less favorable comparisons.
So
this is a family channel.
Yes.
So people, and so a lot of ways they didn't like it. But the other problem that the Move had was the fact that when gamers want true precision, the fact is they didn't want to be playing motion control in the first place. If they wanted to, they just did like, yeah, this is more precise, but I'd still rather just push a button when I want that level of precision.
The only
No,
the only
100.
motion control game I can think of that like kind of tried to make you feel more precise, the only one I can think of is Trauma Center Second Opinion.
Yeah, the Trauma Center games. I'll give you that.
But I mean, the impreciseness of it was frankly just part of it. Like, it was insane. Like, it's part of the insanity of what you're doing, is that you're this crazy, surgeon who's fighting off like the Legion of Doom version of medical stuff, and you have to defuse a bomb, and it's crazy.
Such a great game, though. My goodness.
But the thing that's interesting is, like, with the Kinect, for example, part of the problem for the Kinect is that, like, the things they're showing, they're like, okay, yeah, that works for this, but the problem is they have no clue what the actual situation's going to be. And for the record, swiping left and right, that did not work correctly. And you'd be in a game. I'll never forget, it's a JonTron video about Star Wars Kinect Adventures or whatever it is. And there's one where, where to move forward, you have to pelvic thrust forward.
Oh my gosh.
And it looks as stupid as you think it does.
Probably more so.
Also, it doesn't even get into the insanity of the fact that this thing has facial recognition. And you're like, I'm sorry, it has what?
Well, and the thing that was funny about the Star Wars Connect is people pointed out, they slowed down the video when they like did the demo of it for E3. People are like, he's not controlling it. Look at that. He's acting like this is a choreographed scene, so they actually don't want to use the controller live. They're just simulating it, which was hilarious.
Yeah. So the one thing that has always struck me as strange, particularly like right after the Wii came out, I remember this striking me, is just like, this is, think about your target demographic of gamers. A lot of times gamers are doing things in video games because this is not something I can do in real life.
Yeah.
And they're saying, no, do this in real life. You're like, you don't understand what I just said. I am not particularly an athletic individual. Now, that's, that can be very generalizing. I understand that. But I just know when I go to play video games, it's not because I want to work up a sweat.
To your point, the most popular game amongst NFL players is Madden.
Right.
The point ain't to simulate football.
Exactly.
They're pro players.
And so it's like they can play football pretty much whatever they want, but they'll sit down to play a video game because it's a different experience. And so it's always been very odd when they try and get more and more and more and more into the motion. It's just like, you know what? I'm not here to exercise. I'm here to veg out just a little bit, to relax, to not be super active. And when they put so much of the Wii, especially into that, a lot of the gamers were just like, this is not at all what I want. And a lot of Nintendo's core demographic moved to Sony and Microsoft.
Well, like in a lot of their developers, like you mentioned it earlier, like, how it killed Rare, but like what's now on the screen is one where Squaresoft's like, oh shoot, if I want to make a game, like they were still able to make their core games, their RPGs for the PlayStation, but when it came to the Wii, they're like, what do we do? And so they came up with this, okay, we'll make this Dragon Quest Swords where you literally play the game by swinging the Wiimote around. Not unlike the Trauma Center game you were talking about. I mean, obviously very different in exactly what you're doing with the controller, but yeah, it affected the development of a lot of things. Now, one that I find very interesting, one example, is I had someone talk me into buying the Wii version because I thought it'd be more fun because of the motion controls. And I regret it very much so, but there were some games that were developed for both the Wii and the other systems. And this one in particular was Star Wars: The Force Unleashed.
Oh gosh.
Because, that was one that it played like a traditional game, but for the Wii, they wanted to control it with Wii Motion. People are like, oh, that'll be so cool. So when you do like a force push, you actually push your hand out, and a force pull, you pull your hand out, and it's like you're doing the same motions like in the movie and swinging a lightsaber. Like, this is so cool. Like, yeah, the Wii's the best version to get it on. And I had a coworker actually talk me into like, okay, maybe I'll get the Wii version, and it didn't take me very long to realize, no. When it comes to a Jedi Knight game, I definitely did not want the Wii version, but I was talked into it.
Well, so the thing is, it wasn't just they're trying to use the controllers. In some cases, Nintendo was requiring, Nintendo required you on the Wii for the most part, for the first couple of years, to have motion controls in your game. Like, it was a requirement. And this was like a big source of frustration, for example, with Call of Duty. Because Call of Duty, they're like, well, we don't, like, our games are just ported over. Like, we're not going to add motion control. And Nintendo forced them to put it in, which is part of why I think, like, they were fine doing it. There's like, fine, the Wii's install base is insane. We have to do it because we can't not be on the Wii.
But as soon as the Wii U struggled at all, they were all just like, okay, no, I'm not dealing with Nintendo's BS this time.
Yeah. Well, and that led to the Switch, where those capabilities are still in there,
Yes. And
but
that's the key.
they're not required.
And that's the real cinch with most motion control style games. They work when the game is designed around it, and it's in most cases usually an arcadey experience.
Well, now for an example of a game that's designed around it, in my opinion, this is one of the best uses of the Wii technology. Was WarioWare Smooth Moves.
I should have had
it
that.
was micro games. You don't need precision.
Yeah, you don't need precision.
It's just an immediate reaction. Each game takes 5-6 seconds tops, and it works.
Well, and the problem is once you need that precision, you run into serious problems. For example, Skyward Sword, which I actually really like Skyward Sword, but there were so many puzzles where it demanded you to swing your sword in a very specific way. And the lack of precision was actually really annoying because, sometimes you're trying to do a straight up and down and it'll read a diagonal, or you want to do a diagonal. But that wasn't the worst one. The worst one was when you had to stab straight forward and not swing. But the thing is, when you stab forward, your hand naturally will shift up a little bit, right? Which, and if it's reality, that little motion doesn't matter. But on the Wiimote, it was enough for them to be like, oh, you swung your sword vertically. And it's like, no, I didn't. I was trying to stab. And so there are times you're fighting monsters that you have to stab straight, you can't swing at, and you keep failing just because of the way your body naturally moves your arm forward.
Yes.
It was very frustrating.
Now, to try to counteract this, it was like you were saying, it wasn't fully successful by any means. That's when they added the Wii Motion Plus, which was another point of reference to help make it more accurate, but it still was not sufficient by far.
Well, I mean, Skyward Sword required Wii Motion Plus.
That's what. Yes,
and it
that's
came
what
with one. And
that's what I'm saying.
But it's still,
It's because it required, like you said, it required Wii Motion Plus, because without Wii Motion Plus, you have Twilight Princess.
Yes. Which, in Twilight Princess, once again, was another game that I think the GameCube version with a controller was far, far superior.
Agreed. Well, and Skyward Sword, I think the Wii U remaster was better. Or was it Switch remaster?
Switch remaster.
Yeah, the HD remaster, where you could actually use, like, you don't have to do the motion controls. It's a much better game, in my opinion.
I'm trying to think, does that one play more, like, does the control match, like, Metal Gear Solid 2, the ending?
What? I'm not sure.
So, in Metal Gear Solid 2, I mean, this was kind of the birth of, the Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, where Raiden gets a sword and you swing it by moving the right analog stick up and down to swing
that's
it.
how it works.
It's done Metal Gear Solid 2 style. Good to know.
It's been a long time since I played Metal Gear Solid 2, so.
No, but yeah, like you said, the whole thing of, like, with Smooth Moves, it's very simple, and it's designed around the motion control. And that's the thing that they struggle with a lot of these motion controls, is they said, we're going to try and put it where it doesn't belong. And that's why I do like the Switch, because it does have, like, the Joy-Cons have all the functionality of Wiimotes and are far more precise than the Wiimotes if you ever do motion controls with it. But they don't have all the gimmicks that all the Wiimote games had, because they are actually designed around it.
Well, this minigame is very appropriate for the Wii.
Yes. Well, and it's just the thing. You got to accept the limits of your technology. And like we said with it's the whole thing of you gotta design around it.
Well, and that's one of the other things that's really interesting with Smooth Moves is if you look at it, the design and everything is very, very janky, like intentionally so.
Yeah.
And because just the art is designed that way, your brain is already in a space of things are janky. And so when things respond weirdly, it feels natural within that game that they've built.
Yeah,
And,
no,
and,
that's a
and the
good
other
point.
and the other thing is each mini micro game is so fast that if something is janky and like it messes up, 6 seconds and you're in the next game and you've forgotten about it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, talking about the Switch, and they don't force it on you the way that they did with the
Mhm.
Wii. The best use of it is, in my opinion, Ring Fit Adventure, which it introduces a whole new peripheral because you got to have the ring. But I have this game, and it's demanding of you. Like, it is a stickler. And it's interesting because the way it works is they provide you the ring and a Joy-Con strap. The Joy-Con strap you're supposed to put, I can't remember which Joy-Con in, one of the Joy-Cons into the strap, and you wrap that around your right thigh. And then you have the ring. And they use those two things in very interesting ways to force you to do specific exercises. And it makes you do, like, back on Wii Fit, you could cheat somewhat with the balance board and the Wiimotes. This thing does not let you cheat. And they do some really cool things. Like, at the end of a round, they have you put your finger over the light sensor at the end of the Joy-Con, and they take your pulse with it. And the way they do, like, it's so sensitive that it can tell, like, how much light is coming through, and using that to sense your pulse rate.
You know, the Kinect 2 had that ability. The one that came
Yeah.
with the Xbox One, which it's a lot creepier when you can do it from a distance than holding your finger
Yes.
over the.
Yes,
IR
it starts to
sensor.
sound very Big Brother.
Yeah, no, at my work, Microsoft actually had a special presentation before they released it. It's like, they're like, isn't this cool? And I'm like, that is the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
It's like, was this designed by the NSA? Why is this a thing?
Isn't it cool? That's a word for it, I suppose.
Yeah, but like the Ring Fit, like, for example, they have you do squats, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. I have this thing on the thigh, and it can tell, what its orientation is. So it makes you dip deep for those squats. But then they do like more complicated stuff using the ring, where it's like, okay, you put this on your side and it's going to squeeze it. And it's, oh, okay, there's the pulse thing. No, it's fascinating. And I got to get back onto doing it. I was actually losing weight doing Ring Fit Adventure. And the other thing is just having the fights, and you deal damage by doing the exercises. It's actually a pretty clever edge kit, like, way of dealing with the how do you make people want to do it.
Well, I mean, the thing is especially if you're an RPG guy, you're used to grinding battles to gain experience, and this is literally just translating that to exercise.
Yeah. Well, and then other things, like when you're moving upstairs, they make you lift your legs higher. But just little things like that. And talking about the whole thing of what's the point of a motion control game? It's to sort of get you in that feeling of, oh, I'm actually doing it. And like in this, they're literally actually getting you to do it, and it works because it's an exercise game. And so it's asking you to do very specific things that they can calibrate the controller around. Whereas the Kinect, it's like, oh, it can do anything, and thus it can't do anything
Yep.
because it doesn't ever specialize enough. Whereas this is only Now it's a wide variety of things it can do. I think there's like a total of 36 different exercises for you to do, which, that's a pretty wide thing, but that just, they just have to calibrate it to be accurate to only those 36 exercises. And that's not a huge amount, actually. It just sounds like a lot. No, that's the thing about motion controls. It needs to be used sparingly and where it makes sense.
So, I know you talk about how, like, one thing that's great about the Switch is it's entirely optional.
Mm-hmm.
Though I feel like there must have been some point in the Wii where they kind of gave up that requirement, because, I mean,
Yeah.
Xenoblade Chronicles didn't require it. Monster Hunter didn't require
Well,
it.
it was probably when they started running into companies pushing back constantly, and
But there was a time frame where it was required.
yeah, and it was nearer the start, because no, this is the whole gimmick. If you aren't doing this, then what's the point? And then over time, as they were losing, because that's the thing, the console sales were through the roof, but as time went on, the game sales were not.
Which, I mean, makes total sense to me.
Well, especially for all these casual grandmas that they grabbed.
They just wanted the 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, all they wanted was those little motion control games that made sense for them.
I mean, even my parents played the Wii Play, talking about, oh, it was so fun, we're riding on cows. I'm like, I guess you guys played Wii Play. All right.
You were about to say something, Baggins?
Oh, I was just saying, it's just so it is interesting looking at how many consoles were sold compared to games, when a lot of times that's kind of the opposite. A lot of times the console is the loss leader so that they can sell games.
Yeah. Well, especially
in
the
generation,
modern,
especially the PS3 and the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Goodness. Even with the giant price tag those things had, they still were loss leaders.
Well, and that's part of why, at least with Nintendo, they're always pushing for, we need to come up with a reason for people to buy the console, because as time goes on and everything might as well just be a computer, you have to have something that says why should
your stick?
You need that one game.
Yeah, just something to where it's not just, hey, this is just a cheaper PC.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, and that's part of what's interesting about the Switch 2 coming out, because it looks very similar to the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you get down to it, the controller is what differentiates you from the PC. It's the whole, like, oh, you want to sit down on a couch, you want to have a more comfortable controller than a keyboard and mouse, that's why you go for a console.
Well, and now with USB controllers being the norm, that's not even differentiating it.
Yeah, and you're seeing Microsoft and Sony really struggling with that.
Well, and it's also like, if you look at the Wii, a lot of people talk about how there's not really a good lineup of games on it, but even more importantly, every single good game, not every single, but close to every good game on the Wii was a first party game.
Yeah.
Just like most of the games that, you really, really, really want to play on the Wii, Nintendo made them.
Yeah. No.
What was different then?
Okay, if we're gonna do like specifically
give me
control,
then.
I'm
not
you
saying
already mentioned it.
I'm not talking about
Trauma
motion
Center,
control.
man.
Okay. And you're right. There are like I said, it's not all encompassing.
And then of course, there's Xenoblade Chronicles. Though I don't know. I guess they kind of bought the studio, so I don't know if you count that as Nintendo or not. But
I'd say it's fair too.
Did those sell well though?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh man, that was the whole Operation Rainfall thing. Yeah. Did you?
I know they did a whole bunch on one day, but did it sell well after that? Because that's what they did to get their attention.
I remember Trauma Center was considered one of the must-buy games at the beginning of the life of the Wii.
Let's look this up. Best-selling games on Wii.
But like no, and like I said, there are exceptions. Cooking Mama was another exception.
I
But
forgot
I'm
about
talking-
Cooking Mama.
Oh, how can you forget about Cooking Mama?
I mean,
know what a
I
Cooking
mean,
Mama
yes.
is.
Well, I mean, usually when it comes to Nintendo, they often, I mean, their games are often going to be some of the better ones. Like that's a given. That is a
Yeah.
given.
Well, and
But I'm just thinking there was still some
just,
good
not just some of
third
the better ones, not just some of the better ones, like leagues beyond the other games on the system.
So
particularly on the Wii.
So the top 10 so far, I'm looking through, are all Nintendo except for one, and I'm depressed what number 10 is. Just
What?
Dance 3.
Oh, yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
Well, I
But-
mean, that was kind of the birth of the Just
Yeah.
Dance series.
Well,
Yeah, it was.
because that's one where it's the motion makes perfect sense for the Just Dance
Yeah.
series.
It's the point.
Yeah, I'm trying to look because like someone's like, "Oh, Smash Bros. Was developed by Sora." Okay, that's still Nintendo.
That's Nintendo.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. That's developed by Sega.
That was also, in my opinion, like that was the end of the console war back, like that.
Yeah.
The '80s console war. That was when it's just like, okay, Sega has said has ceded victory.
Oh, Muramasa. That was a Wii game. Don't know why that was a Wii game, but it was a Wii game.
What's that? I don't even recognize it.
Oh, are you familiar with like the Dragon Crown and that art style people? Odin's
I am
Sphere?
not.
Oh wait, Dragon Crown. That sounds
Dragon's
familiar.
Crown, Odin's Sphere.
So it looks
Dragon's
like
Crown is like Sorcerer, Amazon. Elf.
Yeah.
Okay, I know exactly. which one
That
you're
sounds like
talking about.
That sounds like Gauntlet.
No,
No.
yes, but no. This is there's some very specific character designs behind those characters I
Yeah.
just mentioned. That is what makes that particular game famous.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
What I'm talking about, look
it's
up-
the artist. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
artist that makes these games tied together and famous. But because the art style, it's like hand drawn anime. The whole game, it's really really gorgeous. But Muramasa was a game. It was closer in playstyle to Odin's Sphere. I mean, being more of a kind of a platformer, but it was a fantastic game. But I actually think, now I think about it, I'm almost wondering if it did better. It got a remaster on the Vita, and I actually think it might have done better on the Vita than the Wii, even though it was just a truly fantastic game. But
It did, and then you can get it off the PlayStation Store to play on your PlayStation 4 and 5. I think.
is Muramasa playable on? Is there a new?
No, Dragon
version
Crown.
now?
I'm thinking about.
Oh,
not
Dragon
Muramasa,
Crown, yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
But yeah, Muramasa, the Demon Blade, that was a fantastic game.
So I was looking it up, and I'm surprised to say, neither Xenoblade nor Trauma Center are even on the Wii's bestsellers list because you have to have sold 1 million to be on it.
Yeah, well, I said they were great games, not necessarily the best-selling games.
Well, no, it was just I'm just surprised because those are
Well,
ones that
in
people
the case
remember.
of Xenoblade,
We would
Xenoblade
like to
initially
live in a
wasn't going to
world
be
where great
released in
games
the
are the
U.S.
best-selling
at all. So like we had to campaign and fight for it, and then when it came, it was kind of too late to really sell super well, but it still gave it enough renown and knowledge that when 2 came out, 2's the one that sold gangbusters.
Man, so I'm just looking down this list. I'm surprised to see that Punch Out is so low on it. Barely sold over 1 million.
Yeah, which is sad because oh my
Like
goodness,
Tyson's
Punch Out
or
Wii,
Punch Out, Punch Out.
Punch Out
Out
Wii is fantastic.
Yeah, Punch Out for the Wii. Well, that's
another one. But of course, that's still Nintendo. But that was one of the best games on the Wii. Was Punch Out Wii? Holy cow!
and one of the better uses of the motion controls.
Yeah. Though I still didn't. I mean, you didn't have to use the motion controls, and I usually didn't. But it still was fun for the motion controls.
with having the nunchuck there means it's way better, at least than the power glove, because you're actually swinging both arms.
But like that game gets hard, and so once you actually get past like the beginning levels, the buttons are just, you need the precision of the buttons, and so you give up trying to use it for motion controls.
Yeah. No, it's just one. This is fascinating, just looking through the list of what actually sold. But no, but yeah, it just all comes down to actually deciding that to a hammer everything doesn't look like a nail. You actually got to embrace that and stop seeing it as a thing to like, oh yeah, no, this has that. You got to use it. It's like you don't. I mean, heck, I thought it was nuts that we had people in Smash League who preferred to play with the Wii, the Wiimote as their controller.
Yeah, I do remember that. That was crazy.
And they were good.
I just prefer
they were
the
good.
Wiimote. I'm like, are you serious? For real? Are you sure?
Radman, you are nuts.
Blink twice if you need help.
No, he was good. Like he definitely held up his end of that bargain.
Yeah.
Though, as I'm looking at my Wii library, it is clear that the first-party Nintendo games do outnumber the others by like 4-1. So there are some good third parties, but yeah, they're far more good Nintendo games, as opposed to like the Super Nintendo, where the Nintendo games are great, but there's so many third-party games that Nintendo couldn't keep up with that.
Well, and that's the thing, is you got to make your console something that everyone else can work on. And having a bunch of esoteric new things, that's not how you make a good third-party game.
So what about Fling Smash?
What about Fling Smash?
Fling Smash sold because it came with a controller, and you know it.
I know. I only have it because someone gave me like an extra.
Well, and I mean,
was it Mithril who gave it? It's like, here, have a Fling Smash. We're like,
it might have been.
Okay.
I mean, there's a reason that's a running joke with Scott the Woz, where he has a shelf that is entirely Fling Smashes in the background, because
everybody bought it for the controller and then got rid of the game.
Yeah,
so
and he's able to buy it for like $1 at GameStop
for literally a dime a dozen type.
So, but did anyone else play Dokapon Kingdom?
I can definitely say no.
So, Dokapon Kingdom, if you know how people make jokes about Mario Party, destroying friendships?
Yeah.
Dokapon Kingdom, it's even one of the features listed on the cover is that it will destroy friendships in their Mario Party style game.
I see.
It's more like Risk. It's an RPG Risk style game, because you have like a hero and you're going around and you're conquering all the cities on the board and you're trying to build your kingdom to be stronger than everyone else's. And there are ways you can go scorched earth in that game. You can go make a pact with a demon and give up all your towns to gain cosmic powers to just wreck the whole board, basically flip the board in doing so. So that game is quite the game. And I think that one also was on the PlayStation 2. I think that was PS2 and Wii for that one. Now I'm trying to think. Though after the Wii era was over, I think motion controls for the most part died.
Well, I mean,
there's just the minor stuff like helping aim in Breath of the Wild and Splatoon.
The PlayStation controllers really didn't go that well. There was all the controversy around the Kinects. Like, I mean, like Microsoft tried to make Kinects a thing, and do you guys remember how hard like everyone revolted against that? It's like, oh, you want your always on camera, always on microphone phone and internet connection to be a requirement of the system that I just paid $500 for? No, thank you, Microsoft. And
So-
they were like, nope, we're kidding. We're sorry.
You know, now that I think about it, the PS3, even before the move, they were trying to get into the whole motion control with the 6-axis controller. You know, they had games like Little Big Planet where it had a little bit of motion control, though the main thing you could use it for was just to make your character nod his head. But did you ever play the game that was called Folklore on the PS3?
Great game.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't
got it.
have a PS3.
Yeah, I got it. I need to finish it.
I say great game. It's a fascinating game.
It's fascinating. I was getting close to the end, and then my PS3 died, unfortunately, and
Ooh.
I lost the save file. But in that game, it's kind of I mean, it's kind of like a hack and slash run through hallway style game. But what was unique about it is you were trying to capture the spirits of the monsters that you were attacking, and when you stunned them, to actually capture the spirit required you to swing your controller up in a motion control to like suck in their soul or whatever, which was a unique thing that they tried to do. Like, because I feel like a lot of early PS3 games, they wanted them, hey, try and use the 6-axis thing in some creative way,
Right.
and so that was one I feel like they were pushing for it. But yeah, no, it was an interesting game.
It was definitely an interesting game. It's one that I've started playing like 2 or 3 times though, and haven't really gotten farther than a couple hours in any of the times. So that's, but like it's one of those games that I wish that I had played more, because the story worked. Like it was an interesting world building concept, and so I was like,
Yeah.
I want to learn more about what's going on here.
Yeah, because it's kind of like that, got that little mysterious town vibe of like, oh, you know, when there's a small town and murders are going on, you know, it's like, well, there's not that many people here, so, you know, something's going on, and it's
Well,
got
and
that
it's-
whole Irish folklore going on.
Exactly.
And you know, the Irish monsters, and the art style was pretty unique,
Okay.
and
The art style was gorgeous.
yeah, it was great. The DLC was kind of trash, but yeah, no, I got pretty far into it, and then my PS3 died, and I'd have to start over. So
Yeah, hang on, I'm going to put it into watch together.
Yeah, I have never heard of this.
Shoot, where's the link?
and you had 2 main characters that you switch back and forth between. Like, you'd
Right.
finish a chapter with one, and then it choose, okay, the next chapter, who do you want to play as? So I actually think you could like go through the whole game with one and then have to like start over with the other if you don't switch back and forth. Or maybe it would probably only let you get so far ahead with one. That'd probably be my guess. But no, it was a really cool game with the the Irish folklore. It had a wonderful use of the color purple, which
Yes, lots of purple.
I love the color
Irish
purple
folklore.
used like that.
That's interesting.
Well, that was your favorite of all the TVs too.
Yes, the Purple Wonder. Yes, the Purple Wonder. A fantastic little device that was a.
Unless you're
magical
gonna play
gift
Metal
from
Gear
Baggins.
Solid.
Unless you're trying to play Metal Gear Solid.
All right. Well, I'd like to end on the Purple Wonder. So, all right. This has been awesome. I did
Yeah,
not.
there's a capture right there. Because once those little tendrils come out, you have to swing the controller back to pull them all into you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, did not expect this to be the most controversial thing to start, Loved that it went there. So let's promote things. Comedy Site, do you have anything you'd like to promote?
In fact, I do. Of course, you guys all know that I have my fantastic partner, Karina J. She has her story, Entangled Enemies. Voting just ended on Best New Community Novel of the Year back on the 24th. So if you didn't vote, well, then you are cursed now. Sorry. But please go and check out her story, Entangled Enemies, up on Tapas. I have put a link in the self-promotion channel, and she appreciates any views and any reads. Thank you. And everyone gets a steak except Splice.
But I love steak.
That's what you get
Baggins.
that's what you get for saying the power pad is motion controlled. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
Yes, you do. You're literally making them right now. Baggins.
Okay. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. It's a podcast about Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere series. We have announced recently that we're going to start pulling back. So if you want to join in for the live recordings, we've only got 2 more of those left until we go on. I don't want to say hiatus, but we shift the whole format of how we're recording it. So check that out. We record every other Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. We are finishing up our discussion, deep dives into specific stories within Wind and Truth, which is the most recent book in the Stormlight Archive series. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Looney.
Sure, I'll promote Lizzie's stream where she does shiny hunting, Pokemon shiny hunting, and that's Lizzie Petrichor on Twitch.
All right. And everyone can find me, twitch.tv/splicestream. This Saturday, we're doing more Quizzard. Building it up as we, not as we speak, but this week. And yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. So if you like video game trivia, show up, participate. It'll be fun.
Well, I think we overleveled.
And there.